Monday. Monday's almost over. We're almost into Tuesday. Sometimes when I read these readings, I'm not really quite sure what to make of them. Sometimes they're right on point, and other times they're kind of somewhere in between. And I think today's is one of those readings that falls somewhere in between. So welcome once more to more readings from the Science of Mind magazine, the Daily Guides, which of course are intended to help us on our spiritual journey every day. I think it's a great idea. I know lots of magazines and publications out there got similar ideas, but I think it's a great idea that the Science of Mind magazine has been doing this for as long as I can remember, and way back before then. I think magazine's been in print for almost 100 years. How much more it will be in print, I don't know. Will it go digital? Who knows? But whatever happens, assuming it's still around in the next few years, I'll probably still be reading it, and assuming I'm still around in the next few years. Today's topic probably is one that we might rather not look at, but it's really worthwhile. I did some research on it. I did research on the lady who read the quote, and I did a bit of research in the Science of Mind magazine to find something from it that kind of relates to the subject matter here, apart from the one that our writer mentions. She actually quoted from page 56 on the Science of Mind in the Science of Mind magazine. And well, let's get around to it. First quote is from a lady called Audre Lorde. The title, of course, you may have seen it. There is What Lurks Behind Fear? What lurks behind fear? Good question. Audre Lorde was an American writer. She was an activist. She was a professor. She spent some time in Berlin, in Germany. She was invited there to the university there. She was born of parents who came from the islands, the West Indies, Barbados. I forgot where her mother came from. And she was like African-American Spanish. She was mixed. And apparently her mother's side of the family were fairly light-skinned, and they looked more Spanish than anything. Her father's side were darker, and apparently there was some issue when her parents were going to get married because the lighter-skinned version did not want their daughter to marry this darker-skinned guy. So apparently he was very charming, and I guess he charmed them. Anyway, the net result was Audre Lorde, who spelled her name originally Audrey, but she dropped the Y off, apparently because she wanted it to rhyme with her last name, Lorde. So Audre Lorde, she liked the symmetry, apparently, of the words. But behind all that, she says, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. I'm going to come back to this shortly because I've had a request to read the whole thing through, David, and then come back and comment. Ernest Holmes, in 10 Ideas That Make a Difference, so I couldn't look it up, says, there's an inner life into which we may plunge, an inner consciousness in which we may bathe. And Reverend Ryan tells us the following: for as long as I can remember, fear has been my faithful companion. That may sound dark and ominous, and even as I write, I feel the tingle of vulnerability that comes with admitting such a thing. I'm not referring to horror movies or walking in the woods at midnight, that kind of fear, but rather this hum of apprehension, this tiptoeing through life as if something may be lurking around the corner. I wonder if maybe fear is not something to be avoided, but rather something to lean into. In response, I can just picture some of you gasping and clutching your pearls. And I guess that's quote unquote, even though I didn't say so. Please take a breath and hear me out. Maybe this thing we've tried to avoid most of our lives may in fact be an opportunity to pull back what may be hiding behind our masks. Maybe if we can lean in when and where it's safe, we may find that limiting beliefs, old stories, and projected stuff from our past experiences are the true lurkers. Some aspects of fear may in fact serve to guide us into our greatest growth. I know, Reverend Ryan says, even as I write this, my hands burn with doubt. And yes, maybe a sprinkle of fear. Fear of what you may think, fear that I won't be able to live up to my own words, fear of things unnamed. And you know what? That's okay, because it's peeling back the mask behind which we find the opportunities of transformation and evolution. It is this possibility that invites us to face our fear and listen to what it has to say, maybe exactly what we need to hear. She does mention indirectly stuff that she's mentioned before, which to me seems to be behind what she was writing or when she was thinking about this, because she writes about vulnerability. She's wondering if exposing the fact that there's always this fear lurking around the corner of her mind, that being open and admitting this will cause you to, or me, us to think worse of her. Well, for me, it doesn't. It just means when anybody's vulnerable, I really appreciate them, because it takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to talk about these things. And I think if I were to put a thread through these whole readings this month, it's going to be the fact that when we admit to ourselves first, and then potentially other people afterwards, stuff that we don't want to come to the light of day, that we start to grow. But she does actually caution, as I've cautioned in the past, and that is that she says, maybe if we can lean in, that's to the fear, when and where it is safe, we may find that limiting beliefs, old stories, and projected stuff from our past experiences are the true lurkers. So this is the thing that I'm always pointing out to people. Yes, it's good to be vulnerable. You grow when you're vulnerable, but you've got to be very careful. And a lot of us cannot do this on our own. We need help, because it can be incredibly daunting, and it can be actually harmful if we don't do it in the proper way. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm yawning. I have to go to Home Depot after this. Kind of down to earth stuff, right? Andre Lord says, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. In other words, when the goal is big enough, the fear goes away. I remember when I used to go rock climbing, especially in the early days of it, some of the things that we were asked to climb were really daunting. So let me back up a second on that. I don't know what it is. I've not been rock climbing for quite a while, but when I was rock climbing, every climb was graded in accordance to its difficulty. Easy, well, you could kind of walk it. You know, it was just a walk up a slope, as it were. Maybe a bit difficult walk up a slope, but and then there was difficult, which was getting harder, but still not too difficult. Then there was very difficult, which was getting a little, you had to know what you were doing in order to do that. Then there was severe, which you really had to know what you're doing. And then there was very severe. And finally, there was extreme. And those top three categories, these severe, the very severe, and the extreme, you really had to know what you were doing. And it was really daunting. I remember the very first time that I actually took the lead in one of these. I think it was severe, actually. I don't think it was very severe or extreme. I think it was severe. I was up in the English Lake District, and I was waiting for my buddies to arrive. When I was at college, I used to go up there for the week on the weekends. I used to go up there on Friday, come back Sunday evening, and we would go rock climbing on Saturday and Sunday, and get back late on Sunday. It was a Saturday morning, and I was ready to go climbing. I was stood at the foot of these cliffs, and my buddies hadn't arrived, and then two people came up and saw me looking, and they said, "Oh, have you done this climb before?" And I said, "Yeah, I've done several of these before, but I've never led any of them." And they said, "Well, we've never done them. Would you mind leading us up these climbs?" Which I did. Was I fearful? Of course I was fearful, because I never led it before, and leading is a lot more dangerous than following. You know, when you're following, if you lose your grip and fall off, then you don't go down very far, right? If at all. You know, you may swing around a bit in the end of the rope. But when you're leading, you know, there's, at least initially, when you get higher up, there's some protection, but there's not much protection. So, but she's not really talking about that kind of fear. She's talking more about things that we're afraid of that might happen to us, not necessarily physically, or it could have been physically, but she's saying things that we really don't want to see the light of day. And things like, is the shoe going to drop any second? You know the expression, waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, things are going well right now, but hey, is the shoe going to drop? Is it all going to come apart at the seams? So going back to that kind of vulnerability, it's hard. It's actually hard to get into that. But once we do, it's really worthwhile. And as I said, you know, unless you know what you're doing, you probably need some, and this is where the climbing thing comes in. Unless you've done it before, or you're very familiar with it, you've read enough about it, you've been online and looked enough about it, you probably need some help in opening up and becoming more vulnerable. You need a guide. You need somebody to guide you through, somebody who's been there before, somebody who knows the route and can help you. I don't know whether Reverend Ryan does this or not, but it's what I recommend anyway. I recommend that you're part of a community, use the community. You have somebody you really trust, you have a practitioner that you work with, or a prayer partner that you work with. I have a prayer partner, and I trust him with a lot of stuff. And I think that when you get into this business of peeling back the mask and looking at the fear behind it, you know, somebody supporting you, somebody praying for you, somebody helping you, somebody to whom you can turn and discuss it. That's really all I got to say. I'm just searching. Oh, yeah. What was the Holmes quote? Holmes says, I don't think that's the one. He says, self-analysis, to analyze anything, is to resolve it into its constituent parts or elements. Self-analysis is the act of analyzing oneself, right? Look into your own past and find out what you are afraid of, and convince the mentality that there is nothing to fear. Excuse me. Look the world squarely in the face, sift the mentality to its depths, removing every obstruction that inhibits the free flow of those great spiritual realizations which we've talked about from time to time in this textbook. But get somebody to help you to do this. Get somebody to work with you while you're doing it. And I'm trying to get back to my screen here. What's the affirmation? That's a big one. I release my fear, allowing it to highlight opportunities for transformation and evolution. It's a really great affirmation. And I promise you this, that when you do affirmations like this, then that old phrase will happen. When the student is ready, the teacher, the master, the mistress will appear. That's all I got to say. Reverend Lisa will be on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.-ish. All of our recordings are on Facebook, our Facebook page, Creative Life Spiritual Center page. They're on our YouTube. If you just Google us on YouTube, they're all on there. This is on my own YouTube page. It's not on the Creative Life YouTube page, but it is on the Creative Life Spiritual Center Facebook page. And it's also on LinkedIn. It's on my LinkedIn. And where else is it? Oh, and it's on several other business pages I've got on Facebook. So anyway, I'm running out of breath. Not breath. I'm running out of voice. So until next time, namaste.